Hi, I'm Derek, and welcome back to Fun Scale Models. This series focusing on the Park Flyer P-40C Tomahawk, this particular aircraft right here. In this episode, we'll be showing you what hardware and equipment you'll be needing to build the model, how to review the plans, as well as starting construction. Here are the plans for the model. As you can see, there are 1-to-1 scales, so you can build right on top of them. And we've went over in a previous video on how to protect the plans when working on them. One thing I like to check to make sure is the scaling is correct. So this particular set of plans has information on it. I like to hold up a ruler and just make sure that it matches, and in this case it does. So moving our way through here, we have the tail section over here, noting that all the parts are a certain thickness. That's if you're going to be, of course, cutting your own, but if you're using a laser cut model, it's already there for you. Here are the stringers. I'll be showing how those get made later. Some additional cross fuselage former details here, as well as some details around a cockpit area. This here is F2. There's a lot going on in this, and it's good to reference the front of the model as well as this alone. You can see here this darker gray area is cutouts for cooling. Belly pan section here. It does say to build the belly pan last, and the reason being is because you have to glue the wing on first to make sure that all aligns correctly, it's best to add this later. You can see notations of the servos, control rods, hatch detail here. Over here there's construction information around where you can obtain that spinner, as well as some additional details. Let's look at the wing next. The thing that's sort of different about this set of plans is the wing is in the opposite direction when viewing it. That allows you to turn the entire plan around and have the construction much closer to you. Right in this area here is all the directions on how to build the wing. There's some additional information here around the plug-in landing gear, some leading edge templates, some additional leading edge template information up here for you, as well as general construction. One unique thing about this model is that both the elevator and the rudder servo are mounted in the wing. That's to allow for more room for the battery pack. Some additional details here on the landing gear. As plans will be included, or even with kits as an addendum sheet. This one here provides some additional detail on the landing gear, how to be able to bend it to the correct angle, as well as making retainer clips. This might be something that will be added later on when a revision is done to the overall plan, or might be something that's always included as an extra. Before starting the model, it's advantageous to have as much as the equipment, power pack, hardware available before you start your build. This way you're not waiting for something to come in the mail or having to go out of the shop and up to the store to buy something. So let's take a look at some of the components that will be needed to complete this model. The first one here is the motor. This is a brushless 24-gram motor. It's a 1700 kV. It has a radial mount on the back here, and this also utilizes a collet. This type of collet is a pressure type of collet. When it slides over the shaft here and you put the propeller against this, and the more you tighten it, the more snug it gets. Speaking of propellers, of course, you've got a lot of different options. You could go with a 2-blade if you wish. However, the full-size P-40 spun a 3-blade propeller, and that's what I'm going to be using here. This here is an 8-inch diameter, 4.5-inch pitch, and it should power the airplane along quite well. For those of you with a keen eye, you can see that I've got a different type of spinner in front of me here. The original prototype had a built-up spinner, but this is a 3D printed spinner, specifically designed for this model by Rabid Models. I've also used their spinners on my P63. I've had great success with them. There'll be some finishing, some sanding needing to be done, but this will fit the model perfectly, and I'm looking forward to utilizing this. You will need a speed controller. This is a 10 amp. Either a 10 to 15 amp will be perfect for this model. I may go up to a 12 to a 15 simply because we're spinning a bigger propeller, and that will have a little bit more amp draw. Power for the motor will be this here. This is a 2-cell 450 milliamp battery pack. The nice thing about some of these smaller models is this pack here was, I believe, less than $10 delivered to my door. You will need 4 servos for this model. The size servo we'll be using is this one here. It's a 4.3 gram servo. To give you a size comparison, this is a 9 gram servo. So quite a bit difference in size for half the weight. You'll need a compact receiver. This is a 6-channel. This is the one I'll be using in the model. You can of course use anything, but a minimum of 4 is required. You'll also need some servo extensions. Because there's going to be a servo in each wing, you'll need a Y harness. This one's a bit heavy duty, so I might find a lighter weighted one. For connectors, I like to use Dubro Easy connectors. These are very easy to use, hence the name. You can see here, this is the main component that the wire goes through. This is the set screw, and this is the bottom stopper. These also make great tools for ends of landing gear. So like if you have a wire that's the perfect diameter of this works well on keeping this tires from coming off. Speaking of the tires, this is what I'll be using. On the prototype, this is another deviation from that. The prototype we used Gillows models. These are foam. Because I fly off of a paved surface, I'm hoping the foam will give me a little bit more absorption when I do touch down. And I'll also be showing later on how we can dress up the hub here to make it look more realistic like the full size. Control horns. So these are the control horns we'll be using. You'll need a total of 4 for the model, but this is what they look like. Dubro makes them. There's some other brands as well. If you're going to be doing the plug-in landing gear, you'll also need this. These are various different sizes of brass tubing and in shapes. So we've got a 0.06 inner diameter round tube here. This is another square tube that has the outer dimension of this tube. And then for here, again, the same thing. Square tubing sliding in. This is the section that would be actually in the fuselage, or I should say the wing. This is the section that will be attached to the wire strut. You'll also need 0.32 piano wire for the control linkages. And here are some different screws that I've used over the years. I get these from Micromark. They're really, really beneficial. Excuse me, Micro Fasteners. These are the ones I'll be using mostly on the model, as you can see here. So let's look at the next steps for this model. So previously mentioned, this model is available as a laser cut kit from Manzano Laser Works. And here are a few sheets of the actual short kit itself. By short kit, that means that you get most of the main parts of the model cut for you, but you do need to provide additional balsa wood and hardware, as we've already discussed. This here is one of the plywood or light ply sheets. As you can see here, it's got firewall for if you were to build up your own spinner, that's available there, and some additional parts. If you also look here, this is another one of the balsa wood sheets. This is 3/32 balsa. You can see here that in this case, each sheet is noted for you. It has the part numbers listed, but each one of the parts is held in place by a small tab. Sometimes a part will have multiple tabs, and it's pretty straightforward to remove them. You just slide your knife in there, cut across, and out comes your part. One additional thing that you can use these extra, the perimeter around the sheet for is some of the internal structure. So as I mentioned that on the tail section and on the fuselage as well as the wing, there's square stringers that are used throughout that are made of balsa wood. You can use some of this excess sheet for that. So this here is a balsa stripper. We mentioned it again in a previous video, but it works well. The one thing you just want to make sure is on this end here, if you look, you can see there is sufficient room at this end. However, there wouldn't be at this end as the parts are too close to the edge. Using it's very simple. Use the thickness of the wood to adjust the set screw for your blade here and how forward and aft it's going to be. And then, get this in screen for you. Line it up and pull it straight across. You may need to lightly bend it and crack it. And there you go. Your stringer's already set for you. So you can use additional sheet, and you more than likely will need to have additional sheet of the thickness required, but you can also use some of the sheet that's included with the kit. That concludes the majority of the preparation for the build. In the next video, we'll be focusing on construction. Thank you for watching. If you like it, please subscribe and like.